Now we will start building with Copilot. So I prepared an Excel book. I placed it here on my desktop. It's really simple Excel book, like one column with the header CVR and 3 numbers. Now we want to start the AI recorder. We want to first read this Excel sheet and then start to populate a web page. Once that is done, we want to introduce a database and much more advanced features. We will use AI as much as possible today, so stay tuned. Here in the record with Copilot, I choose to launch the recorder. Then 10 seconds will pass and a nice little wizard will open. Here it is. Let me move down here. What I want to do here is to say new recording. Here I need to pick my screen. I only have one screen, but if you have multiple screens, you need to pick which screen the AI recorder should look at. And also the microphone, that'll just be my default. You can see here it works because of these blue bars. Here, before I click record, I just want to make a huge shout out to whoever made this AI recorder from Microsoft. I know some of them. This is amazing. It will record our voice, our screen, and then it will translate those into a working script. Let me show you. So when I hit record here, I will start speaking the script and then I will get back to you. Read the data in this Excel book into a table. Then open up Microsoft Edge and navigate to this web page. Loop through the items in the data table one at a time. Insert the number from the data table's first column to the input field here. Then you click this search button. Read the value of this address text field. Read the value of this postal code and city text field. Read the value of this start date text field. Then you navigate back to the original web page. Once done, you click done. AI will start to analyze my recording and my voice. And it usually takes like 1 to 3 minutes, and then we will have a working script. So let's fast forward. There we go. Now AI created this for us. Isn't it nice? Let me maximize to see what's going on. We can also see that it says, here's your flow over to the right. It translated everything into actions. We also need to make a fix here and there, but instead of creating this manually, this is really nice. First of all, it created a start of AI generated actions in the beginning. I delete that, and I also go to the end and delete that. Then it creates a region. Here we do the web extraction. So what I want to do here is to just name it a little bit better. Double click here. I want to call this web extraction, and not really an error from the AI, but it's just a little bit more easy for me to look at. It also creates comments before each one of the actions, which we should probably remove. They are nice to describe the action, but I don't really need them. I can also see one thing it adds. It adds a wait of 60 seconds. I'm not sure why. We can definitely delete that. We don't need it. But apart from that, it creates a working flow. It would have worked with the wait, but it would just have spent unnecessary time. Let's also hold Control in and then let's delete all. Let's mark them and then delete them. So I mark everything, press delete, and now we have a much more condensed flow. From here, I also want to take the attached to running Excel and read from Excel worksheet and drag them out of the flow. That is because they're not really a part of the web extraction region. Then I also want to, you can see here, it got some UI elements. Here it clicked on a link on the web page. That is probably the search button, and it says use. says also span Esplanade, so it's quite static names. I'm sure the selectors are good because the AI recorder is so nice in creating them, but let's just beautify it a bit so we can come back to this flow in the future. So what I want to do is to go over to the UI elements. And the first thing I want to say, this input text search CVR, that's probably a good name for the UI element. We can see it here. The use, that is the search button. So let's right click and say something like button and then search. This is just a name. It doesn't really change any function in the flow, but I just like it because you can see it also updates here. It will become much more easy for me or my colleague to update this flow in the future. Here, the span, maybe we will keep the span, but we can just say span address. And then we also say the div. So these are elements in the HTML code, so that's why I want to keep them, maybe. You can also say it's an address field if you rather want that. And this was the start date. I can also clean up. I can see the AI recorder adds a UI element that is not used here. To clean up, I can always go up here to the three dots and say removed unused UI elements. It removed that. So now we have a flow. Shouldn't we try to test it? It looks good to me as a developer. I just want to see it works. Now we can see that populates the CVR. We want to see it. It clicks the search button. There you go. And then it should extract the elements. We cannot see it now. And right now, it will extract these three values into the three variables: address, postal code, city, and start date. Of course, we will expand on the flow with other AI features, so we're able to save this dynamically because we want this out and we want to publish it to an online Excel sheet after the research is done. But let's just go through each one of these. You can see it runs. If you want more of these, then please give this video a thumbs up. That will really help me a lot. Thank you. With that in place, we can go back to the flow. We know we should not keep Excel as a database. So I think we should change this to an actual database. Here I recommend for now we use the SQL Server Management Studio with the SQL Server because it's free from Microsoft and it just runs locally here. What I want to do is to go to my start menu and search for SQL Server Management Studio and click it. In case you haven't installed that, there's a 2-minute guide from me right up here. It's actually one of my most watched videos. You can go there, install this, and then come back because maybe you want to learn to actually also automate databases. Here I click connect. And right now, if I go over to databases, we don't have any databases. Let's create one where we can store the information. So again, I go back to my Copilot chat. I start a new chat to clear the context. Here I say, I use SQL Server Management Studio. Give me the script to create a database, DB, with the name CVR info. Then I hit enter. So instead of writing this, I just get it here and let us just mark it, say Control C. Then I go over to new query in the SQL Server Management Studio, and here I can type in my query. I can just say Control V, and when I execute this, you will see that my command has completed successfully. Then you can hit refresh over here. And if you move into databases, we can now see we have a CVR info. I also want to create a table with 2 columns, the CVR number column, and then if it's active or not. Probably with a 0 or 1 value, yes, no. I also don't want to create that script myself, just use Copilot again. Here I say write a SQL script that creates a table called CVR numbers with 2 columns, CVR, which is a required whole number and a main identifier. So a CVR, a Danish VAT number, is unique. And then I can say inactive, which is a required yes, no value. Then I can put in my values. Let's add 4 rows. Then add 4 rows of data with these values. 3, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 9, 4, comma 1. So this is an active one. This is the VAT number over here. And then I want a comma. And then I want to say parentheses 2, 4, 2, 5, 6, 7, 9, 0, and then a comma 1 again. Let's add an inactive one. We want to ignore these in our flow. So here I want to say 29188 505, comma 0. So 29188 505. And the last one will be 54 56 2519 54 56 2519, and this should also be inactive. Then let's send this prompt, and you can see how fast it is. I just specified what I want in human words, and let's create this. It even comment my queries. I can go back here and then put it in. So I mark this to create the CVR numbers. You will see that the command completed successfully. And let's insert the specified row in it. So I mark them and execute that. 4 rows affected. If I go over here and refresh, I will go into tables, and you will now see the DBO CVR numbers. That is our table. I can right click and say select top 1000 rows, and you will see the rows here. So we have 4 VAT numbers, the CVR numbers, and if it's active or not, there's one that's inactive. Now we can go back to Power Automate desktop and start retrieving some data. I can minimize this or close it, doesn't matter. So I go down here. Then you want to click up here and go to Copilot. Make sure you click this, because that is where Copilot in a little while will insert our actions. Then I go down here and make sure I'm in add a step. I say add actions to connect to a database and execute a query and close the connection. So a really simple one. But now you will see that Copilot finds the right actions for us and insert them. It placed them up here, and again you can see it placed them in the middle of the Excel. I cannot, even if I click here, it will just insert afterwards. No problem. What we want to do is to get rid of these Excel actions. Let's first get rid of these 2 end of AI generated actions. So mark both of them, or one of them at a time, and hit delete. I also want to double click the region name. It creates a region more, and here I say read from SQL database. Hit save. Then I can also go into the open SQL connection. Here I need to make a connection string, and I want to show you how to connect to the local SQL Server database. In case you want to connect to your database, then you need some documentation from your database. So here I'll say driver equals, you can just do it with me if you use the same setup. Driver equals SQL Server. Then I say server equals my server's local. And I say integrated security equals true. And database was called CVR info. That name was the name that we created over here. With that in place, I can also say that, see that the variables produced is called a SQL connection. That is fine. Then I want to go into the execute SQL statement, because here I need to do a query, and I can see I can actually also generate scripts with Copilot in here. So hit it, and here we want to prompt, just like we're used to from the large language model, Copilot chat. So here I want to say something like get a list of active CVRs from the table CVR numbers. The columns in the table are CVR active. Then I hit generate, and again Copilot will generate a script. This looks fine, and if I think this is good, I hit use the script. You can also see I have a comment up here. Let's delete that. I don't really need that. I just want the actual script. The variable is produced, query result. Let's call this one CVR numbers and hit save. So now we will use this CVR numbers instead of the Excel data. I can mark the attached to running Excel, mark the read from Excel worksheet, press Control both and delete them. Then we will get an error down here because right now it loops the Excel data. I want to double click to open it. And instead of Excel data, I want to loop the CVR numbers. So here we have it, CVR numbers. Hit save. I know all this works down here, not when combining them, but let's just check that we can connect to our SQL up here. So I place a breakpoint here. The breakpoint just pauses the automation, so I can just test this up here. And when I hit run, I just want to see that I can connect to my SQL Server database and that I get no errors. That's fine. At least I don't get any errors. I can hit stop. We will test them in combination. Now I can see if this query works. I can move over to the right and see that I have the CV numbers in flow variables. Double click to open it. There you go. We have the active CVR numbers. And what we want to do here, you can see here, we again moved into the current row of this data table and take the CVR out, which is indeed the same. So that worked because we made the same header as it was in the Excel. If it had been a different header in the database, you would have need to change it down here. Right now, the data is overwritten from loop to loop. I know that, but let's just test that we can actually loop the database instead of the Excel. So here it launches, and I want to see that I can type each one of these in, that we can actually iterate through each one of the elements. So right now it looks fine. We are looping the CVRs. At least we just need to make sure that what we wanted in the query, that we have put in the CVR numbers right, that it will be our only error source now, but I think it will work. I think everything works now. It looks good. There we go. So now we saw it worked. I can loop the SQL database. That was this one here. This works. Everything, I can combine these. Now I want to save the extracted data, because right now this address, this postal code, and the start date will just be overwritten in the loop iteration. Let's save it. And here we need a little bit of knowledge. We want to create a data table. We can do that in two ways. Let's use a set variable for that. I'll put it below the launch new Microsoft Edge. So here I will call this CVR info. And to create a data table in Power Automate Desktop, you can either look it up in the documentation or simply just do it with me. Because we want to create a headers row first, we make this little hat and a heart bracket. So %, curly bracket, hat, heart bracket, and then we will have the CVR. And that is the data I want to save in the CVR info variable. That will be a data table. Zip and city and start date. This will be the headers row. Close it with a heart bracket, a curly bracket, and a %. When we hit save here, if you see any errors, then you haven't done it like me. Please rewind the video and make sure you did the same. So then I want to know, how can I add rows to a data table? I can again use Copilot if I want that. Now I can pick the learn about over here, and here I can say what action adds rows to a data table. Then we are getting that. So it's a nice way, the Copilot, to have a flow. We can see we used the insert row into a data table. We want to insert it in when we extracted all of this data. So go find it. Insert row into data table. Go find it and pick it in below. The data table that we are working in, that will be the CVR info, which we just created up here. Where do we want to put it? We want to put it in the end, and then we can say, what do I want to put in? Well, this needs to be a list, so I can have a percentage sign, a hard bracket, and then a hard bracket and a percentage sign. And in here, I will have my 4 elements that it needs to go in. So first we want the CVR number. That was the first item. We have that here in the current row. So I can just say current row, and then I can give the header in there. That was CVR. So in single quotation marks, that was the first one. Then I will use the 3 variables that we have here: address, postal code and city, and start date. Address, we will get a few errors here. That's fine. I'll show you why in 2 seconds. Just need to find these variables here in the variable picker. I like this. We will only have percentage signs in the start and end of the code block. So we're referring to variables. We will delete those. It's needed in the syntax. So here we have it. And this one, of course, corresponds to the header. So we have the CVR, address, postal code and city, and start date. I can hit save. So now that is in place, I think I actually want to move it up here just for simplicity. And we can try to run it. So now I want to see that not only can I run the flow, but I can also save the data. Here I can do the searches. We know we can do that when we saw that this works at least one time. It's always nice to test it. I mean, when you develop, you test your solution a lot of times. You see that it works in all instances of the browser, all time of the day, because you usually just test it like 1,000 times. Of course, we want to design some test cases. I will show you how to do that with Copilot a little later in the video, so please stay. We will cover all aspects today. So here, I think that's the last iteration. That's it. What I want to see now is that when I move over to the CVR info, that we can now save the data. There you go. We have saved the data in the right columns in a data table.